Right. Let's check out this video from Gacha Gamer then, shall we? Dropping a preemptive like. Neverness to Everness gameplay is amazing, but Neverness to Everness first impressions. As somebody who was, I've said multiple times, it's public, that it was my most anticipated gacha. It's still very much an anticipated gacha for me. I think Ananta might have stole the throne now. I'm fickle, I know. But we saw gameplay, which is always going to change people's minds a bit, to be fair. And it definitely needs work, doesn't it? Just from an outsider's perspective, combat, pacing, in regards to the combat itself, impact, the elements, all that sort of stuff. For the most part, seem like they need work. There's lots of positives about the game as well, though. But let's see what Gacha Game's got to say about it then, shall we? And yeah, let's see what's going on.
So, I've spent a lot of time playing the newest game, Neverness to Everness, and I have some strong feelings about it. I've completed a ton of missions, I leveled all my characters, I built my team, and most important of all, I explored a lot of the city itself, because to me, that...
See, I don't know, it was a trailer, it was highly edited, but just looking at the car gameplay that we've got to see from Ananta already, looks a bit better, doesn't it? Cars look very stiff in this. I don't know, we didn't really get to see the best angles in Ananta. Just things like the suspension just looked a lot more, I don't want to say realistic, but, you know, impactful. The cars looked better moving on the roads.
That's the most important thing, since it's very unique to see anime girls driving around the town and checking out all the urban elements.
Damage zone.
Now, I think this is the first closed beta test, and if you haven't noticed, the game was only available in Chinese, both for text and voice. So I had to use my trusty phone to translate some stuff. And actually, the reason I got into this beta was thanks to the developers who wanted to support my channel, which I'm thankful for. However, I will be sharing my opinion and thoughts about the game, as well as some feedback.
Okay.
Anyway, what is...
The game is gorgeous though, isn't it? The game is really pretty, you know? It's really pretty.
Neverness to Everness, or NTE, all about? Well, in terms of story and the world, I tried my best to understand it via translation, but basically, you start things off with the main character whose name is Zero.
Cutscenes are really good as well.
Bureau of Anomaly Control, which are like, I guess, Men in Black, but for anomalies.
See, there is, this game, this is going to be the new Genshin with the new waves, isn't it, this? Because you've got the Bureau for Anomaly Control, and then I think in Ananta, isn't it like the agency for something to do with chaos or some shit like that? You know, the PvP, I think, is going to be kind of enjoyable to sit back and watch.
Instead of aliens, and you are introduced to a lot of different characters before meeting up with the director, who gives you the first task of finding a weird anomaly. Later on, it turns out the main character has a special ability to sense the anomalies, and after completing the task, you get stationed in this quirky building, where you meet some of the cast and get on with the daily life of assisting various people and businesses, helping them remove the anomalies that's bothering them. Oh, and you also have fuzzy memory, so you decide on a new name to get called, and in my case...
I didn't know that was a thing. So we've got amnesia again then, have we? Okay, we're doing that again. All right.
I am Gacha Gamer. Now, one thing I've noticed was the storytelling and character development. All the scenes are shot from a lot of different angles. Various non-conventional methods are used, like character faces doing those anime expressions,
yeah,
or
I like
even
these.
changing
I do
the
like
overall
these.
style of the cutscene. All of
there's layers to the cutscenes, which I'm a big fan of. This is a thing though. If this game doesn't do really well, are we going to see this change rapidly? Because there's a lot of time and effort put into these cutscenes, in the expressions, the layers, the little bubbles that pop up, the angles, the camera angle changes, things like this, literally switching from 3D engine models into animated 2D stuff. This is like really cool stuff, this is. Will it stick around though if the game isn't doing exceptionally well?
All of this is great and breaks from the monotony while still keeping things fresh. I also love the fact characters are goofy and interact with each other by amplifying their traits. Like this cat girl, Nunnally, I think that's her name. She likes to take care of her tail with the spray, but the other mini Oni girl becomes upset since she hates the smell of it. Like, there's tons of these lighthearted but fun moments. Also, the level design for...
I'll say that though, characters interacting with each other, good to see. Wuthering Waves needs to do more of that. I want to see my Resonators talking to each other, definitely.
Story missions so far have been really good. Like, one of the first anomaly commissions you take on leads you to a haunted photo studio, where you get chased around by these camera frames, and if they take a snapshot of you, you also take damage and freeze in place for a moment. I mean, the whole vibe of anomalies happening in a modern city is a great idea, to be honest.
I'm
like,
here for
at this photo studio, you finally get to fight a boss that's made up of camera film, and when you beat it,
I'll say that as well. Even though the combat definitely needs work. From what I've seen of some of the boss fights, you can definitely see that Terra Fantasy inspiration, because I think one of the strong points of Terra Fantasy is the boss design and the boss mechanics. I think they're really good, actually. And they seem quite unique. You know, fighting a role of film, that's a cool boss to fight. Like, come on, you know? You know, it's quite interesting. It's a clever design, if you will. I think, anyway.
It was just a little piece of film that was causing these problems. And again, because the characters don't take themselves too seriously, you get to see some funny victory posing for the photos that they decide to shoot. Okay, so that's a brief overview of storytelling. Now, let me show you, in my opinion,
I think the running animations look a bit stiff, don't they?
Open world. And starting with the cars, you cannot steal them like in GTA, which I guess that makes sense since you're playing a good guy. So instead, you can either...
Plus, I think maybe because of the games being Chinese, I don't think they necessarily want you stealing cars, do they? Although in Ananta, you can commandeer, or it would have been cool if they'd have added something like that, because you're an agent at the government, you can commandeer the car. Promise I'll give you back later, you know, and that's just implied.
Rent them or buy one from a car dealership. If you rent, you can immediately start driving it, while the car bought from the dealership needs to be summoned. Although in reality, any car you own or rent can be summoned with a button. Anyway, the driving actually feels nice, although it's still closed beta, so there's definitely some bugs and funny encounters you can run into.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I saw this clipping.
All cars so far I tried out felt different, and I don't know about you, but I just love sometimes to drive around aimlessly in the sunset. Also, as you can see, you can
How many people have, obviously, if you play GTA, which I'm hoping most of you probably have just driven around GTA trying to abide by the road laws? You're driving at the speed limits, you're not trying not to hit traffic, you're stopping at the traffic lights, you know? I think we've all done that, right? We've all done that. I want to be doing that in these sort of games as well. It doesn't last very long, because you usually bump a car and next thing you know, you've accidentally hit a lamppost, or you bump a police car and next thing you know, you're in a 4-star freaking police chase because you shot the copper. And, you know, but I like to be able to do that in these sort of games, I do, so I can actually feel like, you know, try and immerse yourself in role-playing for a few moments before you end up murdering like 50 people.
easily beat up the cars from reckless driving. You can smash into a lot of objects and cause some havoc. That's literally the first thing I did. I just wanted to test the limits. But what's more interesting is that some cars, like this fastest one, become quite slower when they're beat up. They don't explode, but some can become less efficient. Also, with the three different car models I tried out, this one had medium speed but sucked at sharp turns. The Jeep, or whatever it is, I'm not a car person, this one had great durability and even beat up could drive consistently. And then this fastest one would spin out of control if you're not careful enough.
The city's design looks good though, doesn't it?
And repair the cars and even pick a different color, all for a small price of currency you can easily obtain in the game. And I believe in the future you can also do some tuning with different car parts. But yeah, driving in the city is pretty crazy. We've come pretty far in the gacha market. I mean, just look at those beautiful graphics during rainy day, since the game is using Unreal Engine 5 with various technologies, so it all looks stunning while cruising around. Still,
this is my worry though with it being on UE5 is what's the frame rate limitations going to be because of all of the TAA and all the different aspects of it. Because again, going back to that video I watched the other day on Unreal Engine and how it's potentially limiting frame rate in games at the moment. Really interesting watch. A lot of the stuff went over my head, but just something to think on actually. But yeah, it does look good. It does look good. It does. It does look good. Again, the problem is at the minute, it's kind of in that comparison phase, isn't it? Because Ananta just dropped that trailer, so everything you're looking at in this game, you can't help of that little voice in your head going, well, looked a little bit better on the Ananta trailer, but this is gameplay. We gotta take that into account. This is actual proper gameplay. It's not edited. Well, it's edited by the YouTube, but you know what I mean? It's not a trailer. It's actually full-on, fully fledged, full-fat gameplay.
Besides getting from point A to B, I didn't find any vehicle activities to do, although I think stuff like racing and more will come in the future, so I am looking forward to that. Also, there's a train you can ride around by getting inside, so public transportation for the win. Although, not so much winning if you ride on top of the train and crash into a tunnel's wall. Now, besides transportation...
Oh man, it's a shame that the ragdolling's not there. You know, again, this is where for me, when I looked at open world games and I think about that sort of stuff that's fun in a game, where like GTA and Red Dead Redemption just are the gold standard. Because for me, when you've got an open world game, those are the silly little things you want to do. I'm gonna go and ride the top of a train and get clapped by the bridge. You know what I mean? Let me get run over. Let me try and run other people over. And I understand them not wanting to have that sort of stuff in the game because it's not GTA at the end of the day. But just like having ragdoll physics in a game can make for some hilarious moments in a video game, can't they?
What can you actually do in the city? Well, since we're living in the age of consumerism, there's tons and tons of shops and markets you can visit and buy stuff. I'm not kidding you. I think I visited like 15 places, and there's still more to find. From ramen to fish to burger joints to furniture dealers to even real estate agents. That's right, you can even buy yourself a nice apartment and decorate it with a lot of modern stuff like sofas, queen-size beds, and so on. Heck, you can even run some businesses like this coffee shop, assign some characters, create beverages or dishes, and earn some income passively. Overall,
okay, so it's for currency in game. That is. I was wondering that before when they mentioned that you're going to be able to have jobs and stuff and that. Like, what was the reasoning going to be? Is it going to be a gameplay element, or is it literally going to be like assigning characters, like how you can in like PGR or Genshin or Star Rail to basically get you some materials back? So it seems like the latter.
A lot of little distractions in this game, and the density of shops is quite distracting. So we will often end up in some place just checking out some goods. By the way, one impressive technology at play here is the seamless loading from indoors to outside. Granted, I think right now it still needs some optimizing since I heard from others too, there's a small frame rate drop when leaving and entering places. But it's still a cool feat here, especially when we'll talk about encountering anomalies in a moment. But what's a city without inhabitants? When walking,
I think that's always going to be a case even when the game's out. It's minimizing it to the point where it's unnoticeable in them transition periods where you might have a couple of frames dropping rather than it being, I don't know, going from 120 to 70 or something, and maybe going from like 120 to 115 and then back up again.
Around, I came across a lot of NPCs just doing their own thing. Like this group of people dancing around a street musician.
Yeah, but like, it doesn't look great though, does it though? You know? It's got these dudes doing this. You know, like, I'm okay with repetitive animations and repetitive NPCs. In a game like this, you're going to have them. But when you've got them next to each other, have them doing something a little bit different. For me personally, it's just, you know, because in games like this, when it comes to gacha games, I don't really talk about immersion too much. But when you're going to give me a city like this to explore, I do want to feel immersed in certain things. And little things like these, it's not game breaking or a deal breaker. But it's just like, have this dude putting both hands up maybe, or him doing something else. If he's going to stand right next to him at least anyway, you know, just to give a bit of a variety. And I wouldn't even have an issue if you had a crowd of people and there was a few people doing the same thing. But when there's just two of them, you know, give me something different from the guy standing right next to the other dude. When the driving gets old, will the traversals still feel good though? I feel like we're in the honeymoon phase and I wonder how good these mechanics will feel in the future. Well, this is a problem for me that comes with all open world games, not just gacha games, is that the world itself can kind of become a barrier to fun sometimes, because if the exploration isn't incredibly intuitive, immersive, and fun, especially in a gacha game when you've got work to do, shall we say, in your dailies and material farming, getting from A to B can end up being a pain in the ass. You know, that's why obviously you want teleports and stuff, but there's always going to be that little bit of traversal from getting to your beacon to where you need to go to. So it has to be done good, doesn't it? And this is why I say that open world games sometimes can negate that enjoyment a little bit. And this isn't just a gacha game thing. This is an open world game problem altogether. This is why, again, I always go back to things like Red Dead Redemption 2 and GTA, where I never feel like it's a chore to move around in those games, where not every game does that so well, that just traveling back to a mission or a safe house or something, it's like, oh God, can't I just get there? This is annoying. Like, so yeah, I agree. They've got to work on that in making it enjoyable. I think that'll just always be a problem anyway. I think it's unavoidable to a degree.
Or if you go to a local academy, you can see a bunch of students doing stretches, running laps, and so on. Or if it's raining, you can see some people walking with umbrellas, while some hastily run covering their heads from getting wet. Like, part of the fun was just to see what people are doing in the city, and it definitely made it feel alive. At least people are doing different stuff. Still, let's not forget this is a world where anomalies happen, and if you encounter them while exploring, man, they are really cool. Usually the perspective will change in some trippy way, like here world went upside down, and now I think this sort of stuff's really cool though. With umbrellas, and if I beat them,
this is cool. These sort of little mechanics like that, where you get that like visual VFX effect roll through. That is dope. That is, in my opinion. I'm definitely here for that. Really good.
Rewarded
like
with a chest. Or if I talk to this random entity of boxing gloves, a literal ring rises up from the ground,
That's
and I
dope.
have to knock it out quickly. If I defeat it, I even get a unique weapon disc I can equip on characters.
Was that boxing gloves attached to just a brain? Is that like, are we supposed to give that brain CTE or something?
And probably my favorite part was when I was driving around, and this ghostly motorcycle enemy appeared, so I chased it down and then got into this epic fight, again gaining the disc weapon afterwards. Now, to be clear, you can either run into these anomalies by just exploring, or you can use this anomaly activity locator to find them. So these are like exploration tasks you can do for extra rewards, which is nice if you don't want to blindly look for them. There's also these ravens that hold spheres, and they are found everywhere around the city. Collect enough of them and you can turn in for rewards, so like a collectible system basically. But yeah, in terms of city life and anomaly exploration, it feels pretty balanced, and the area itself for this beta felt big enough to explore. As you can see the map itself, there's enough distinct environments like residential area, commercial district, a park with an arena, and so on. Alright, you saw some combat footage, so what's it like? Well, in short, there's an attribute or elemental system, I guess, and each character belongs to one, and looking at this wheel, characters from adjacent elements can cause various fusions. Like, some can make the enemy slower, others apply damage over time effects,
so it's kind of like elemental reaction, but not
amplify these effects, but because it's all in a language I cannot read properly, so I cannot comment too much on these systems. Also, enemies have stagger bars, and one of the fastest ways to build it up is by performing perfect dodges. You will see the character gain this glowing effect, and next attack will inflict a lot of stagger. Once the enemy stagger...
What I'm seeing from the combat itself, the fundamental ideas are there, you know? The fundamental ideas are there. They just need to be worked upon. Again, it's kind of like an elemental reaction system, I think, but from what I've heard from other people who've played it, it's not quite the same, and I think that definitely needs work. But like, just like looking at what's there, it feels like the elements are there. They just definitely need a lot of work on that. Again, I'm going to make a video soon talking about afflictions or status effects, if you will, that I'd like to see. I'd love to see them in Wuthering Waves. Doubt it'll ever happen. But not necessarily an elemental reaction, but elemental stacking that can happen within a specific element. So it's not about reacting with other elements. It's about stacking within the same element and using the status effects to get damage buffs and debuffs and afflictions added onto enemies and such. We'll talk about that in another video.
Your bar is full. They take a lot of one-time damage.
Genshin things again.
For example, even become stunned. Now, in terms of powers, all characters have a skill and ultimate plus some passive
cool-looking enemy.
So you build up a team of 4, and then you can see some of them can light up during combat, and you can unleash their, I don't know, combo or outro attack, whatever the name is. So you can hop between these units stylishly and deal more damage. Also, some characters like this Catgirl Nunnally can warp gravity, and you can start walking on walls, which can be a pretty dizzying experience for some, but it's nice to see you can explore the city in different ways. Still, where there's a gacha, there's character progression. And honestly, this one is pretty standard so far. You've got the level ups and ascensions, then there's...
Combat for now is 3 buttons: attack, skill, ultimate, other gachas of air attacks, charge attacks, different combination using basic and charge attacks, dodge attacks here only, perfect dodges, right? So yeah, it feels not finished. Yeah, I think it's got nuance that needs adding to it, doesn't it? I think all of the components are there. They've just got to build upon them now, really. I think that's their job, and hopefully they'll do that. That'll be the main focus, is that combat needs to work. Everything else can get worked on later. The combat is elementary, isn't it, really?
Disc/weapon you can equip, and you can raise their abilities. Hence, you can also enable up to 6 duplicate powers, which we know as constellations. Although, keep in mind, there's no gacha system in this CBT. But what's really cool is that you can actually toggle the constellations, which could be handy. Finally, probably the most...
Okay, that's cool. So, does it actually toggle them though, or is it just like, does it literally turn off the buff you get with that? Because that's cool for, like, I guess for challenges. You know, if you've got like a C6 of a character, but you want to, you want to just do arbitrary challenges potentially. I kind of like that.
Interesting power progression would be this I guess, artifact system. You basically slot in these Tetris pieces in which all have main stats and substats. Plus, you can also put these two halves of a circle to enable a set bonus. However, what's really unique about these pieces is that you can immediately see all the substats before you level the pieces. So I was able to just handpick anything that had critical rate and...
Okay, I like that. I like that, I must admit, I like that. That's cool.
Damage, which felt quite liberating if I'm being honest, and I hope the devs keep this system in place. Now, as for the characters...
I bet they don't. I bet that gets gutted when the game comes out.
Got to play with quite a few of them. Probably my favorite one was this girl with black and white hair. She uses the power of darkness to deal damage in a cool way, and she can even shoot these blasts from her hand. I also liked this one who goes absolutely bonkers with the poor minion she uses. And I've had some really unhinged moments with her skill. Like when you hold down attack, she just sits down and her minions start sucking up things while she's singing.
Oh, so there is some sort of... Oh, it's just a light destructibility. It doesn't look as good as an Anta, though, I must admit. The interaction with the NPCs as well is not exactly great. I'd want them to maybe react a little bit more, you know, connected to what you're doing here, rather than just kind of like staggering through what you're doing. Even if it was just a little, oh, you know, like GTA, old GTA. I'm not even talking like GTA 5 here. I'm talking like GTA 3 type stuff, reactions. Yeah, I want, if I'm in an urban world, I want people to react around me when I'm doing weird shit. Is that just... Is that
anyway,
eating?
Probably the last thing I want to mention would be the daily loot. It's quite standard so far. You got some stamina to spend for materials and account experience points, so things like ascension mats or boss items can be farmed with the stamina, and there's also a weekly boss you can fight for better loot up to 3 times per week. And of course, you better make sure to do those daily tasks, cause...
Why is the arbitrary number always 3 for the most part? It seems like that's the number, isn't it? Like we have these things that are set in stone. This is why I want to see more gacha games breaking out from these. But of course, they've got to like have the same sort of psychological aspects in the game. These loops, these things that bring you back. But like, I just always find it that these companies always repeat these same. That well, they did it that amount of numbers. We've got to do it. Well, that's how the end game works in this game. Well, we've got to do it. Like, let's see some change in that regard.
They award a lot of account experience. But yeah, these are my first impressions with NTE so far, and in my opinion, right now, I really enjoyed city exploration, and I especially like the theme of anomalies. They fit in perfectly into this world, and those trippy areas I visited, I always found something amusing about them. Now, as for my feedback, so far, I think the biggest one would be the optimization for stuff like frame rate drops, and also I would like to see more activities for vehicles and some more activities in general, since once you run out of one-time anomaly encounters, there's not much to do. But I think the biggest highlight for me would be the anomalies.
That'll be a major problem. If you're going to have an open urban world, there's got to be stuff to do, hasn't there? And again, this goes back to open world problems in general. If you're going to have a big open world to explore, you've got to give me reasons to explore, to want to do stuff within the world, haven't you? Otherwise, it just becomes this vacuous sandbox that's just got point of interest in specific places. And then, in a sense, it almost becomes a hub. And, you know, how's it any different to just having a hub in another gacha game where you go to this area to do this, you go to that to do this, and it's just less inefficient in a way and looks prettier. If it doesn't feel interactive, immersive, and something you want to be a part of, it becomes a detriment to the game. Again, this is why I say open world games, unless the world is really good, can be a major negative to the game experience.
And I hope to see the devs continue innovating with the ways you can experience them, because this and the city itself was what made me excited to try the game again whenever the next testing round comes along. Anyway, thanks for watching the video, and as always, I'd really appreciate it if you could press the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks,
already did, bro. Already
see you
did.
next time.
Okay, alright. So,
I'm not sure.
I think what we can say, really, obviously, as not playing it, but we've all got eyes, we're gamers. I think we can look at stuff sometimes and kind of get a feel for how things are going to be, or at least what we're seeing anyway. I think the game's got plenty of potential, you know. There's definitely lots of positives. You know, like character design, the cutscenes, expressions, the artifact system looks kind of cool. I like that. If they keep the substats being visible, I like that as well. The combat looks like it has potential. It definitely has potential. It needs layers and nuance added to it, and obviously tweaked to just be a little bit more polished, shall we say. But like, it seems like a lot of those components are there. The open world looks good. It does look good. But I also think it might be a bit empty in things to do, because for me, if you've got less things to do, the interaction with the world itself has to be top tier. And what I'm talking about, I'm talking like, you know, like the ragdolling things of like, you know, like what we used to just mess around doing in GTA sometimes, you know, like Red Dead Redemption, like a game like that. You can spend hours just messing about in the world, really not doing anything or going anywhere, but just doing funny shit that causes stuff to happen that's just really fun to do. And I don't think this is going to have that. I don't think Ananta's going to have that either, really. So the points of interest have to be really good, don't they, to make the world feel fun to go around. Oh, I'm going to go over there because I'll go and do that. And I need to do this here. And them to be dotted everywhere pretty much. And POIs need to be everywhere and to be fun as well. So I think that's something that will need to be worked on as well, though. But I think it's promising. I do think there's lots to look forward to in this game. But I also, now we've got to see it a little bit more. We can see, I guess, without the hype glasses on, that the game's it's got a lot of stuff to improve on, hasn't it? Hopefully, how to do it. Hopefully, they've learned from the mistakes with Terra Fantasy. Hopefully, we'll see a good game. Because at the end of the day, I know that certain communities, when they see another game, they just want to trash on it and hope it does bad. We want good games, don't we? These good games, even if you're not going to play them, are going to make the games that you play better. So we all want this to be good. We want Ananta to be good, and hopefully it will be. But yeah, guys, if you haven't checked out Gacha Gamer, I'm sure you probably have. Go show him some love. I'm looking forward to the game now. I still am looking forward to it, but I think Ananta stole that top spot now for me personally.